if the government was smart. All right, well, let's bring in our panel this afternoon, our political strategist, Bruce Hawker and Grahame Morris. Plenty of politics we'll get to, but, well, Grahame, you know the South Coast of New South Wales as a fellow Canberran very well. All of us get down here when we can because it's such a beautiful part of the world. It really is sad to think that this beautiful community of Tathra on the far south coast has been affected in the way that it has. The beautiful forests and bushland around each of these little beaches on the south coast. Just awful to think of them being destroyed in this way. But then the homes, nearly 70 homes have been destroyed here. Look, I don't want to dwell too much on the climate change debate here, but Grahame, you'd know this community, I'm sure, and communities like it on the south coast. And you've seen, these sort of natural disasters in the past. What will it mean for a town the size of Tathra to lose 70 homes?
Well, it's just terrible, and it's just a reminder that some of the real reality stuff that you're showing on TV is much more important than some of the crap that we are dished up. And it also shows, again, I think, that human life, country towns, compared to sort of the political game that we all play, when you get a disaster like this where people pull together, the defence people come out, the special services people come out, the politicians come out, it's terrific. But Tathra itself is a wonderful, wonderful mixture of water and trees, and it'll be a long time before it looks the same.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And look, there will be questions, Bruce, around development in areas like that. I mean, people love to live in those bushland areas, but they do carry big risks. You've got to make sure that the protections, the hazard reductions are right, that the notification systems are there so that when there is a threat, people are told can get out if possible. Fortunately, no lives lost with this one, nor in Victoria. But, Graham's right. I mean, you look in this room behind me, there are people here who've been here all day long, people who've been here all through the night. You've got counsellors, you've got chaplains, you've got, those orange shirts you can see behind me, the Rural Fire Service folks who've just come back in from the fire front as well. It really is a reminder of what's good about our society as much as anything.
Indeed, and it brings out, I think, the best in Australians when they're confronted with these sorts of natural disasters, because communities come together and they respond accordingly, and out of it comes new growth, green shoots, and life returns. Fire is a vicious beast, and Australians have to deal with it all the time. It's a constant reminder to us that we do live in a very hot and tinder dry country sometimes, and we have to be aware of that when we build our homes so close to the bush. But I think they're all things for another day. I think right now the important thing is to remind the people of Tathra and in Victoria as well that Australians are right behind them, as they always are in situations like this, and they're part of a bigger family, and I think Australians always do come together so well at moments like this. It's a powerful reminder.
No doubt about it. And I've just been watching some young blokes coming in carrying big loads of water bottles. It's still pretty hot here today, and the fridges right next to me here are being restocked as we go to air, which is good to see. Everyone will welcome that. Now, you're right, Grahame, it does seem a little sort of second order, the politics of the day when you see what's happening in a community like this. Nonetheless, let's touch on what's been a very big weekend in Australian politics. You were both there with me on Saturday night covering both the South Australian and the Batman by-election results. 48 hours on as we digest what happened there, just on Batman itself, Grahame. I mean, a lot of interpretations about why people voted the way they did, why they backed in. Are you sticking by what you told us on Saturday night, that this was always a lay-down misère for Labor to win?
The seat of Batman has been held by the Labor Party for about 100 years. The trick that Bill Shorten pulled off was magnificent, and that was to convince everyone that it's actually a marginal seat. Yes, they had a candidate who happened to knock 10% out of it by his own silly antics in the past, but the minute a half-decent candidate turned up against a pretty ordinary Green candidate, they get a slight swing towards them. It should have been. It's a 58 to 60% seat, and at the moment it's only 53. So, You know, if I were Mr Shorten, I'd be thrilled by the way people treated it, but I would know in my heart that it was rubbish.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, the Greens, Bruce, have got some soul-searching to do, haven't they? And I saw Richard Di Natale today pretty fired up, saying they'll expel those who are behind all the leaking and infighting that clearly hurt Alex Tahl.
Indeed. Look, the Greens are a party divide right now, not just in Victoria, but right around the country, and people need to be aware of that. They divide strongly along environmental and political grounds. There's a green wing to them and there's a very deep red wing to them, and they are fighting it out for control of the party. When people sniff that, then they're much less inclined to support them. And I hope that Australians see, you know, what's going on inside the Green Party, because they try to make out that they're above politics all the time, when they're as archly political as any politicians I've come across in 40+ years of involvement in Australian politics.
And I think, David, I think David
sworn in. Yeah, sorry, you go ahead.
Well, I think also the Greens have become very predictable. You know, how would you be? The leader of the Greens in the Senate this afternoon is jumping up and down about environmental change being partly the cause of the Tathra thing. And you think, well, mate, it's just, A, it's poor form, B, it's probably wrong. Does that mean that every time we have a fire or a flood or you know, some snow, that somehow or other it's climate change? No, it's not. It's just normal.
Yeah, I think that is what he's saying, and I don't think it's any coincidence that it comes after a pretty poor weekend for the Greens, that he's throwing some red meat on the table on Monday. Yeah, on South Australia, just very quickly from the two of you, Stephen Marshall sworn in as Premier today. What does it mean nationally, this change of government, long time coming in South Australia, Graham?
What was the question?
What does it mean nationally? How does it change the federal political scene, having a new Liberal government in South Australia? Yeah. Look,
it's very important. Some of those truisms we used to think that it might take the Liberal Party 45% primary vote to win, I don't think is actually true anymore. And that is, you know, we've had Bennelong, we've had New England, we've had Tasmania, now we've had South Australia. Just imagine had they gone the other way, everyone would have been saying, oh, it's all Malcolm Turnbull's fault. Well, you know, 1 to 5, the Liberals have won them all. I think that's really important. But across the table from the Prime Minister at the heads of government meeting now will be a fellow who they understand each other, rather than somebody from the South Australia who just wants to make a political point, particularly about blackouts.
Yeah, well, I think that the problem for the government, the federal government, and this, Graham and David, is that now the federal government has got a government in South Australia it's got to work with, and if the people in South Australia are unhappy with what's happening, they can focus their attention on the federal Liberal government. Having a party of the same political ilk at a state level is usually a problem when you're a federal party. It's no real surprise that Howard was Prime Minister when all the states and territories in Australia were Labor. You get that yin and yang effect, that powerful push and pull. So that's one thing. Second thing, I think this was obviously a good result for the Liberals. It's the first time they've won since 1993, but it was not a terribly bad result for Labor. There was actually only a 1.9% swing against Labor. After 16 years in government, there was a bigger swing against the Liberals when you take into account the redistribution. So, a very interesting result.
On the primary vote, it was a bigger hit for the Liberals than Labor. But anyway, after 16 years, you're probably right, at 1.9% swing ain't too bad. We better go. Bruce, Graham, thank you both very much. I look forward to catching up soon.